with the goal of incriminating priests. And he's trying to get some of the top Jesuits. And the guy says he can incriminate 60 priests. And they say, you don't need that many, just try to get us some top Jesuits. The guy, however, is not going to go forward until he gets his pardon in advance. And he gets it. And that's all in the file. So this is the beginning of the gunpowder plot by an agent provocateur of Cecil. Now, at a certain point, one of the Jesuits who realizes, the underground Jesuit in England at the time, he writes to the Pope, and he says, look, they're planning this crazy thing. What should we do? Well, Aquaviva, the general of the Jesuit order, writes back to him saying, stop. The Pope says, cease and desist, because this is going to hurt us. We don't need it. Now, the problem, of course, is that when it all became public, Pope Paul V Borghese, that's the guy who's got his name on the front of the Vatican. If you've ever been there, it says Paulus V. Borghesius right in the middle of the facade. He did not come out and denounce it, so that he opened himself up, because he felt, politically, he thought a lot of his people were actually sympathetic. It's one of the common weaknesses that you have. Now, the person who rented that building that we had up before is an agent of the Percy family. And this is a minor Percy. This is not the Percy. The Percys are the Dukes of Northumberland, as you know. But the idea is that the attempt is to steer it into this direction. Now, Percy Thomas is one of those people we saw in the picture. And this is one of the main pieces of proof. Sir Francis Moore is going home late at night in the middle of London, goes by the Middle Temple, and he meets Mr. Percy, one of the conspirators who's going to die, coming out of the great statesman's house, meaning Robert Cecil's house, and wondered what his business should be there. Coming out at 2 o'clock in the morning. Now, the only defense against this one is to say, yeah, it was so dark, he didn't know who it was. Yeah, but wait a minute, he met him. He probably said, hi, how you doing? Up late tonight, what's going on? Right? So they exchanged words. It doesn't say he saw him. It says he met him. So, Percy is a double agent, a tame duck used to catch wild ones. In other words, these typical groups that we've seen, the 7-7 group and similar groups in the US, there are double agents in the middle who know what they're doing, and then they're surrounded by fanatics, dupes, and others. One of the targets is the leading Catholic nobleman in the country, or one of them, Lord Northumberland, also of the Percy family, but not the same guy. This guy will later end up in the Tower of London, and he's going to spend a long time there. Now, the guy who rents the house is Sir Dudley Carleton. And you think, well, if you rent the house from which they try first to dig under the House of Lords, your career is over, right? Wrong. This guy will go on to become the Foreign Secretary. In other words, he'll go all the way to the top of the government, about as far as he could go. He becomes Lord Dorchester, Viscount Dorchester. So notice a pattern. If people take part in these actions and then they get promoted, false flag. There's Dudley Carleton. Ambassador to Venice, a Venetian. Now, Catesby is the other double agent, as I tried to point out, right? Percy, Catesby. Here is a deathbed confession. Catesby's servant, Bartlett, on his deathbed confessed that his master, Catesby, went to Salisbury House to meet Cecil several nights before the discovery and was always brought in privately at a back door. So we got the two double agents absolutely established. Winter is most likely a patsy who simply works for one of these peripheral figures. Mount Eagle, the Mount Eagle letter, I can't go into that. It's too complicated. But this is a patsy who does not know what he's doing. Now, how many times have you seen these images of 9/11? 500,000 times, 1 million times? I don't know. It certainly seems too many. In those days, of course, they don't have that, but they do their very best. And let's count if they all have the correct means of the myth. Because remember, the meme is nighttime, the lantern, and the spurs. Okay, there's the original. Nighttime, lantern, and spurs, and he's caught in flagrante delicto. How about this one? Divine illumination exposes him, and he's got the lantern, and I think he's got his spurs too. The powder plot. How about this one? Here he does not have spurs, but he's got his lantern, but his own head is already displayed in the corners of the House of Lords. digitus Dei hic, right? Here is the finger of God. How about this one? A plot with powder, black deed. The Lord behold. So there he is. Faux, guy faux, like faux news. This is a Dutch one. Here we have the powder plotters down here, and up here we have the king and the lords already meeting. This never happened this way, because of course it started the night before, last night. Here's another one. Here we have the Pope having one of his usual luncheon meetings with the devil, and another devil is over here blowing in Fawkes's ear as he goes into the basement of the House of Lords. This is Fawkes's lantern, displayed, I believe, at Oxford. I'm sorry I don't have the whole caption. Now here's a German print of the same print we saw, and again, the agents are Catesby and Percy. And they will die together, standing back to back. They're going to get cut down because they've got to be eliminated, because they know too much. So these are double agents who get killed. Am I not? And again, it's the same method. Now here's a very interesting thing. The whole thing is blown the night before, last night. But Catesby and others, Percy, ride to the main Catholic area. And where do you think the main Catholic area is? Stratford-on-Avon, Warwickshire. Now my notions of geography here become a little bit blurry. But the main Catholic areas, they go there and they say, rebel, rebel, rebel. Come out of your houses, arm yourselves, come in the streets, get seen with us, so then Percy can chop everybody's, Cecil can chop everybody's head off. Get the idea? What Cecil wants to do is to flush out all the opposition, get them out in the open, and crush them. So, and he goes to the area of Shakespeare. Now, irony. The gunpowder involved in the gunpowder was not gunpowder. It was corn powder, meaning a very inferior, very large grain type of powder. And in this case, we find it was decayed corn powder. So decayed or inert corn powder. And where did they get it? They got it from the Royal Arsenal, from the War Office. Here you see, November 1605. Now this is from the Daily Telegraph back in 1978, and it means that those big barrels of gunpowder that were there for show were not going to be able to explode. So the whole thing is a fraud. But this shows that there was comprehensive technical assistance from the Royal Arsenal and from the War Office. This contrasts unfavorably with the FBI at the World Trade Center in 1993, when the FBI said, one of the patsies, one of the informants involved said, why don't we just use an inert powder? We can get them anyway. And the FBI says, no, 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 we got to have the real thing. We got to have something that will really explode. So let's call it from now on the decayed corn powder plot of 1605. A provocation by Cecil using Catholic double agents and patsies. A couple of other people involved, Ben Jonson, the bad poet in my view. He's in contact with Catesby, Tresham, and Winter. And at a certain point, Robert Cecil goes to Ben Jonson and says, I want you to find me certain Catholic priests because I want to ask them a few questions. And there he is. Where does he go? He goes to the Venetian ambassador's home. Now the reason this is important is this shows you that the Venetian embassy is up to its neck in the middle of the intrigue. And this is a very important fact. One of my main points tonight is if you don't understand the Venetians as being a key part of it, you can't understand the whole thing. The superpower of intelligence in the world at this point is Venice, and they've been doing it for centuries. Now we have the question of torture, also interesting compared to our own time. These are 3 signatures by Fawkes. Before torture, after some torture, and after more torture. Looks like he's been tortured pretty well. Beginning, end. We also have the confession of Thomas Wintour. Now again, it's Winter, but he writes it Wintour.